See, a lot of people seem to that sell tritium watches that contain tritium illumination. A lot of them say it's the best illumination in the world. Well, I don't say it's the best. What I say, it is without doubt the most reliable form of illumination on a watch dial you can possibly buy. It's always on. It's always the same brightness. It doesn't fade. So there is a half-life. In theory, between 6 and 12 years, it's half as bright as it was in the first place. And in 25 years, it's gone completely.
Right.
Well, I've been working in tritium watches now since 1998. So we're talking 24 years, and I've still got one of my original watches. In fact, I've got a few. They're still glowing. Definitely not as bright as they used to be, but you can still see them in the dark without any light source or battery power to charge them.
Hi everybody, it's Richard again here, the editor of the WatchGecko magazine. It's always a treat for us when we get the managing director of a watch company in, and today is one of those days. So I'm delighted to welcome Roger Green from NITE Watches. Roger, welcome.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
It's great to have you here. Now, NITE Watches. I'm familiar with them. I don't know if everybody else is. Why don't you just start by giving us a bit of a potted history of the company?
A potted history of the company. How long have you got? So we were founded in 2003. Would you like to know prior to that, or would you quite happy
A little bit of history is good, yeah. A little bit of history is always good.
So back in 97, I was working with another Swiss company, no names mentioned today, but and we formulated a brand that was particularly specialist in tritium illumination. And I got pretty hooked onto that sort of system and saw that there was actually nothing like that in the UK. So I thought that would be a great start to start my own watch brand and bring it to market with my own watch company. So that was way back in 2002, which is when I finished with these other guys. And I spent a whole 12 months formulating a name for a brand, which is quite difficult in the watch industry because most of them have already gone. It has to be internationally portable, internationally understandable, not already registered, not trademark protected. So it took a while. So it took me about 15 months to sort of get all that, design the logos, the name, what the brand was about, how it was going to work, how we could get the watches manufactured, who with. So then I formulated NITE Watches. So basically in November 2003, which is when my first delivery of watches were delivered.
Okay.
And they came in and we just set about it. One of the main targets that we wanted to focus on, which was the usability, people that could find the tritium illumination most useful, were going to be scuba diving, outdoor, and military, which is, because these markets are fairly familiar with the illumination. So we thought that would be the low-hanging fruit in the UK. And we initially went in and started putting stocks into military PRI stores, which are sort of preferential regimental institutes. And the soldiers just gobbled it up. They absolutely loved this technology. Some of it they were already aware of because it was already embedded in some of the equipment they used, like weapon sights, screens for dashboards on vehicles, military equipment, things like that. The technology was also used in submarines and all sorts of things. Scuba diving is obvious because it's just great illumination. So first thing you need when you're scuba diving is good illumination. And outdoor, same reasons really. It's just a funky thing to have, being able to see your watch in the dark when you're coming back from your adventure late at night. It's just nice to be able to read your watch in the dark. So it was a great market. Yeah. And that was very, very successful for a number of years. And we got to round about 2006, 2008, and the internet started to kick in. And we got quite a large number of internet sort of outdoor retailers that was really punching above their weight on the internet in the early stages of the market. And what we noticed is that a lot of the bigger brands were selling our watches, like Cotswold Outdoors, Blacks, people like that, Snow and Rock. They were really starting to sell our watches, but mainly online. So we just took a view on it. I just took a view on the whole thing and thought, hang on a minute, let's look at a new strategy. So I decided in 2008, 2009 time that we would completely change our whole direction in terms of how we sell watches, because we were always owed a huge amount of money. The more watches you sold, the more money you needed. People weren't paying you. You had to do all the marketing. You had to front load everything. So I just decided that we would just create an entire new collection over the next 18 months that nobody had. We would give all of our retailers and our distributors notification that in April 2010, we would no longer be supplying any watches to anyone, and that we would buy back all of the watches that they hadn't sold by that time, and we would go direct online. It was a pretty nerve-wracking time, to be honest.
I'll bet.
It was the best business decision I ever made. Selling less watches, making the same or maybe a little bit more money, less stress, never owed any money. And we've never looked back. So we were one of the front runners to being exclusively online, direct-to-consumer watch brands in the UK. In fact, I actually believe we were probably the first to exclusively do it. If not, very close running with some of our well-known compadres out there.
Other brands are available.
Other brands are available.
Yeah.
So so here we are today. That was a little bit nervy to start with, because suddenly we were selling a lot less watches, and we were dealing with all of the early stages of internet selling. Trust is a big issue with a lot of people. Fraud was another big issue with a lot of people, because we were selling watches to people that actually maybe didn't exist. So suddenly the watches disappeared, and you lost your watches and your.
That's not good.
Watches and your money. But it wasn't too bad. It wasn't prolific, but it was just the odd problem. But today it's an extremely effective way for us to work. It enables us to work really closely with our customers. I mean, we've got a huge community of night watch owners around the globe now. And we do all of our servicing in-house. We do all of our design in-house. We have our own assembly workshops. We're working very closely with a very well-known watch company in Switzerland, creating our new Swiss-made automatics, of which to start with there's going to be 3 models, starting in early, hopefully subject to delivery, but hopefully in March 2023. That's when we're bringing our new model. It's called the Atlas, which is a Swiss automatic field watch.
Which we had a sneaky preview of today.
And we've had a look at some straps for it.
Yeah.
And,
happy days.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Looking forward to getting it.
So, I mean, that's obviously, that's great. That's put everything in perspective. We know where you started. We know right bang up to date now. Let's just for a minute, because we've spoken extensively off camera, and we all know you and I, we're both big Tritium fans. I've written extensively about Tritium watches in the magazine. We've just published a NITE feature, which will hopefully resonate well with people. For those who are not familiar with it, which is quite a few, I suspect, tell me a little bit about Tritium as opposed to, say, for example, Super-LumiNova.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty easy. So the reality of Tritium, see, a lot of people seem to, that sell Tritium watches that contain Tritium illumination, a lot of them say it's the best illumination in the world. Well, I don't say it's the best. What I say, it is without doubt, and there is no question about this, it is without doubt the most reliable form of illumination on a watch dial you can possibly buy, because it lasts for many years. It's always on, and obviously, if you've got an electrically charged light source and an LED diode in the back of your watch, and you press the button, Of course, that's extremely bright because it's powered. It's also extremely battery draining, and for watches that have that feature, they've got to have a massive battery. And if you use that feature a lot, you'll be lucky if your battery lasts a year.
Yeah.
Then you have the original LumiNova, which is all we all know. The phosphorus, the light charged source. That used to be anything from 20 minutes, and then Super-LumiNova came in, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that Super-LumiNova at its very best now is 4 hours.
It does fade.
Yeah.
It does
4
fade.
hours, and then it starts to go, and it becomes very dim after 5. So it's not 100% guaranteed. If you're in the dark 24 hours a day, and you've got an expedition up in the Arctic, then 5 hours of Lume is not going to be good. And if it's light charged, it's not going to charge at all unless you put a torch on it.
Good point.
So that's it. Whereas with Tritium, it's always on.
Yeah,
it's always on. It's always the same brightness. It doesn't fade. So there is a half-life. It's quoted between 6 and 12 years is a half-life, 25 years is a full life. So what that means is, in theory, between 6 and 12 years, it's half as bright as it was in the first place, and in 25 years, it's gone completely.
Right.
Well, I've been working in Tritium watches now since 1998, and I've still got one.
Doing the maths.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're talking 24 years. And I've still got one of my original watches. In fact, I've got a few. They're still glowing. They're definitely not as bright as they used to be, but you can still see them in the dark without any light source or battery power to charge them. So that's how long it lasts. And don't forget, GTLS, gaseous tritium light sources, can also be replaced if you want to replace them. We do it occasionally for people. Some people come to us and who've had one of our watches for nearly 20 years from the early days, and we've replaced the light sources for them.
Yeah.
Most people just want to treat themselves to a nice new watch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because to replace these tubes, it's a pricey. It's a pricey
absolutely.
thing.
I mean, I think the only scenario I'd probably even consider that was if I had one of the original polymer watches that was US military qualified, say back in the late 80s, and you wanted to keep it going. It's the only conceivable scenario I could imagine. Yeah.
Well, we had, our very, very first MX-10 model, which is like the Volkswagen Golf of our collection. I mean, it's just evolved and evolved and evolved, and it's just a fantastically simple, clean-looking watch. It's the most popular watch we sell.
It's a
still to this day
cracking field watch.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And do you know what? Do you want to hear a little story about this?
I would love to.
This field watch is our most humble watch in the collection.
Yep.
And MBZ, who is the literally the crown prince of the United Arab Emirates, wears this watch every single day. And he's been wearing it now since 2014. For the first couple of years, we didn't even know he had it. We haven't sold it to him. We haven't sent it to him. He was obviously gifted it at some time. And so, you're talking about an MX-10.
And he's a well-photographed man, isn't he?
This is a man that could literally afford a collection of watches worth $1 million each, no problem.
I'm pretty sure he's got one.
Yeah, for sure. And people... so as a result of that, our market in the United Arab Emirates has just gone through the roof.
That's great.
Because they're buying it. And the reason they buy it is because it's so humble.
Yeah.
They are impressed with the fact that he wears a watch.
It's the complete
and it makes him humble.
Yeah, it is the complete antithesis of what you'd expect the regular watch to be out there. I mean, as readers will know, I lived there for 7 years, so I know know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it is, but for me, coming from almost like an operational perspective, it does everything it says on the tin.
Yeah,
I don't know if am I going to get prosecuted? Is that somebody else's sales line? But that's the phrase that leaps to mind. I mean, now we've mentioned it. Obviously, what I was going to go on to now was now that people understand what the tritium is, what's actually in those glass tubes and what it does is, could you just briefly take us through your portfolio? So we've obviously got the Hawk, we've got the Alpha, which we haven't spoken about yet. Just tell us a little bit about those.
Okay, we'll take you through it. And I will also elaborate a little bit on the tritium on the way through.
Okay,
because
cool.
I didn't quite finish that.
Okay, right.
So, I mean, I don't know if a lot of your audience will know about how tritium tubes are made and how they work.
Let's assume not, because to be honest, I think a lot of people own it.
Yeah.
They see T25 or T100, which they probably don't really maybe get. And I think everybody would love to hear a bit more about it because it's your thing.
Okay. So to watch these things being made is quite spectacular. I mean, it is really, it's completely intriguing. A gaseous tritium light source is a laser sealed tube that has been, as I said, is sealed by labor. It's flat ended, and it starts, and they can go down to as small as 0.5 millimeter thick, hollow. They start in a tube at about 3/8 of an inch thick. It's about 1 centimeter, and they are heated and stretched through a machine, which is a patented process by the manufacturer, which is a company called MB Microtech. It's a Swiss company. I mean, this is highly specialized technology. The tube, once they get it down to the diameter that they wish, the inside of the tube is coated with a very, very fine adhesive material. It's blown in and then closely followed with a process of blowing into that phosphor. Very, very, very fine graded phosphor. Various types to allow for the different colors of the tubes. But green is the brightest, right? Followed by white, followed by yellow, followed by blue. There's one called ice blue, and then it goes down to orange and red. They blow this phosphor through, they seal one end, and then it goes into a machine it's fixed into a machine that injects gaseous tritium. Gaseous tritium is something that is taken from nuclear reactors in the wind down process. So it's a gas that they have to use. This gas contains beta radiation, which means it gives electrical impulses. It's not gamma. Gamma is the stuff that causes cancer. Beta radiation is electrons. So a completely different thing. A lot of people think, radioactive, it's going to cause me problems. That isn't the case with this. And the amount is so minuscule that it's literally not even worth mentioning. What they then do is they inject this tritium gas into the tube, and then to a pressure of about between 2.5 and 3.5 bar. And what that does, and then it's laser sealed. The tritium inside, which has electrons, excite the phosphor, which creates energy, which creates a light, which is self-powering. And because it's in a glass called borosilicate glass, cooking glass, the tritium and the electrons never escape and therefore continuously excite the phosphor inside to create the glow. And that's how it works.
Wonderful stuff.
Isn't it amazing?
It's witchcraft, isn't it?
It's just amazing.
It's amazing.
And they go through a number of tests, heat, water, vibration, and right through the whole process. And so if you have a bag of 1,000 and they go through this process, if there's any sign of any leakage or anything like that, the whole lot go back to the beginning until literally there is no sign of anything, any leakage or anything. And then these get picked. And then they get graded into color codes and into brightness codes so that every single thing matches. So when people see a tritium watch as being a bit expensive, this is extremely specialized, expensive technology, which is why our watches may just be a little bit higher in price than, say, a watch that doesn't have this technology, because it's at least double the cost of the very best Super-LumiNova and is a lot harder and more time consuming to build into a watch. And that's the problem. It's,
that's good to know, because there's quite a lot of tactical watches out there that are using normal lume. And you're right. You're probably looking at another £100. Perhaps,
you are,
for a Tritium watch.
Yeah.
And I think that's good now, because people understand why.
Yeah.
Because it is significantly different technology.
Yeah, that's right.
To what you're getting on a Lume watch.